So, students of agriculture, this is a walnut tree. You can see at this time of year, still spring, we've got little baby walnuts. I planted this tree here because when I was a kid in 1960, my dad bought this place and there was a huge walnut tree right here. It was really big. It stretched across this whole yard. And of course it gave us nice shade, and then in the fall, like October, we would get a long bamboo pole and knock the walnuts out of the tree and then pick them up off the ground, put them in paper bags, and you had to dry them a little bit, and then you could shell them and then freeze the nuts. Anyway, this little plow was on the property when we bought the place. This was pulled by mules. And a lot of farmers, that's what they used here 100 years ago. So there's old equipment like that. But let's go to the almond orchard. This is my 40 acres of almonds. These trees were planted about 12 years ago. Before that, in 1983, I planted 40 acres of almonds here. And after a while, we went to Jamaica, and I gave up farming this for a while, but now I've come back and this is my property again. It's been in the family. And what you see on these almond trees are also lots of little baby almonds. There's a couple varieties here because this row of trees pollinates this row, and vice versa. The bees that we hire to sit here in February when the flowers are on the tree, there has to be cross-pollination. So the pollen from these flowers pollinates the flowers over there and vice versa. And the bees just fly back and forth gathering pollen, and since it's on their legs where they hold it while they gather more, it rubs off when they land on a new flower. The pollen is transferred that way from the bee's legs. Now the thing about almonds that most people don't understand is that leaf right there is a peach leaf. Now in a minute we'll compare the almond here to a peach. Notice the fuzzy skin on the outside, and when you crack this open, the seed in the very middle, it's mostly jelly right now. That'll be the almond, that jelly. And then this green stuff, what we call the hull in the almond business, that's the peach. So you got the seed or the almond inside, and the flesh, which is actually quite edible at this stage. Tastes pretty good. It's like a green peach. I just had breakfast, so I don't need to eat it. Here we have not an almond tree, but it's a very similar leaf. This is a peach tree. And if we look over here, let me reach here and get a smaller one actually. That's called a double. It's not going to develop into a nice peach because it's like Siamese twins. They need to be separated, but neither one has got the full development it needs. But notice the fuzzy outside and stuff. That's just like what the almond looks like. It's identical. An almond is simply a peach. Inside, you get the same jelly in there like the almond that's developing a seed in there. Of course, the flesh out here is what people like to eat on a peach, and they don't eat the seed. But if you open up a peach and take the developed seed out, it's just an almond. So almonds are peach trees. That's the whole point of this. Now actually eating an almond right now, it's it's nice tasting. If you eat this right now, it's bitter. Peaches are bitter at this stage. They don't get sweet till they're ripe. The green almonds are a delicacy in the Middle East, for example, and in Persia. They chop them up and put them in their salads. And they're not bitter at all. It's a mild flavor. It tastes good. It tastes like a young peach. So anyway, peaches and almonds. There you have it. So if you come through the orchard here a little bit, this ground when I was a kid was a cotton field. One year we grew potatoes here. You can grow 8 tons of potatoes on an acre of ground like this if you have enough water. In 1 year we had 40 acres of potatoes, 320 tons of potatoes. You know how many pounds that is? I'm not going to tell you. You got to multiply 320 times 2,000. That's how many pounds of potatoes are out here. It didn't pay to dig those potatoes. It costs more to dig them out of the ground and clean them and take them to market than we could sell them for. So my father, with tears in his eyes, brought a tractor over here from his other farm, put a disc on it. I was about 14 years old, and he says, disc up those potatoes. Just plow them into the ground. And then he left town for 3 days. He couldn't bear to watch. He had grown those potatoes, but he would have lost money to try and harvest them and sell them to people to eat. So for 3 days, I went back and forth across this field, about 8-10 hours a day. And when he got back, it was just dirt again. No sign of that potato crop. So this is a permanent crop. When we had cotton, potatoes, even carrots out here, we would disc and plow the field every year. Now it's permanent. The soil is never disturbed any longer. You can see this drip irrigation line here. That's how we irrigate. There's about every 2 feet, there's a little emitter built into the tube. There's 2 hoses in each row, so the trees are getting drip irrigation through here. The water was shut off this morning, so it's damp, but all the water soaks into the ground, which is a very nice, efficient way. Every tree gets the same amount of water in a drip system like that, all the way down the row. So each tree gets an equal amount of water. The water doesn't evaporate into the air hardly at all because it soaks into the ground just about as fast as it comes out of these tubes. So we're not wasting any water, at least. It's a very efficient way to irrigate with drip irrigation like this. One problem is salts build up in the soil, and you can't really flood those salts down into the soil deeper very easily with this system. So you got to watch for salt buildup. If there's salt in your irrigation water, after 10 years or so, you're going to see a white crusty film on the surface as the water sort of dries away, the salt's left behind, and if it gets too salty out here, you just couldn't grow anything after a while. We got pretty good water here, and that's why you don't see any crusty salt anywhere at this time. Because we don't disturb this soil, it's very interesting. If we walked out here long enough, we'd see gopher snakes. They've come into the area because the soil's not disturbed. When we were disking every year and plowing the dirt up, you killed the snakes. I mean, you didn't have gophers either. They went away as well because you're always tearing up their home. But now the gophers come back in a permanent orchard like this, but so do the snakes, and they're kind of in balance. It's kind of nice to see snakes out there because they're actually keeping control of the gophers that would eat the roots of the trees if you got too many, and they could kill some of these trees. We let the weeds and grasses grow in the center here in the spring like this, and then we mow it so it looks pretty smooth on the ground. We do spray herbicide where the hoses are, because when we harvest the almonds, you shake these trees, and the nuts, when they're ready, when you shake the machine grabs the trunk down there and you shake it, just vibrates like crazy. and all the almonds fall down to the ground, straight down to the ground, and the ground is just coated with almonds everywhere. And then they dry for about a week right there on the ground, and then we blow them and sweep them out here into the middle and make a windrow, nice long straight row of almonds piled up. It'll be a couple feet wide. And then a machine comes and picks them up, and it blows off the dust. It's one of the dustiest things you can do. So they invented new machines more recently that as you blow off the dust goes through a cyclone, something that's like this. And the heavy dust settles out, and not near as much dust gets blown away then. It's better for the environment. And of course, that means the people who live around here can breathe a little bit cleaner air. So things are always changing, technology is always changing, but we grow an awful lot of almonds here in California. You know, something like 80–90% of the world's supply of almonds comes from an area just like this here in California. One thing about almond trees is they get sick a lot, and the roots are not real strong. They're kind of shallow. So sometimes the wind blows, the ground is wet, and you can see over here, this tree recently just kind of blew over. Some of the roots right there just sort of broke off. It just doesn't have a great root system, and it doesn't take much to send them down. This tree doesn't have any almonds on it yet. Next year it'll have quite a few. This tree's been here about 1 year. This stake holds it in place for the first 2 years. The cardboard cover here is two purposes. It keeps rabbits from chewing on the bark and killing the tree, and it also, well, there's another reason. It keeps suckers like this branch here we don't want. Just picked off a little branch that started. It keeps branches from growing out of the trunk down low, because that's where the machine has to grab the tree eventually to shake it. Here's one almond on this tree. That almond will not get harvested because we're not going to shake these little tiny trees, especially ones that only have one almond on them. You might damage the young tree by shaking it too early. The other reason for this cover is we do spray herbicides right down the tree row to keep it clean for the harvest time. So it's a poison. That's why this weed right here is dead. It's been sprayed. Then we have a clean surface here, and makes it easy to blow and sweep the almonds. Like I said, we mow in the middle to get it clean. We don't have to spray anything in that part.
What's the name of the herbicide?
The herbicide we use here, we use several different kinds. You get pre-emergent herbicides like Goal. Goal is one that we've used. You can spray it in the winter, and then the weeds try and sprout, but they can't come up through that where that spray was. They die. And so they really don't even emerge. And then you burn off weeds, like the weeds here have been burned probably by sometimes Roundup, sometimes Paraquat, sometimes, and these are bad herbicides. The guys doing the spraying have to be fully dressed, fully protected, and they're usually in a cab that's filtered air coming into them. And you don't want to come mess around in this soil right after it's been sprayed either. Yeah, it's some serious poison really when you think about it. Not because any one spray is all that deadly, but it's cumulative. It builds up in the environment, and that's where the real damage is done over time, using a lot of these poisons. So yeah, we use poisons out here. It's not the world's best system, but you can sure grow a heck of a lot of almonds doing that.